Experiment 1. Aspirin synthesis. Begin by adding 15 millimoles of your salicylic acid to your Erlenmeyer flask. Follow this with an addition of 5 ml of your acetic anhydride and then 3 to 4 drops of your concentrated sulfuric acid via pipette. Swirl the flask and then place in a hot water bath between 45 and 50 degrees Celsius. Leave it to stir and dissolve for about 5 minutes. Once our acid is dissolved, remove it from the hot bath and place on your bench top to cool. Once at room temperature, use your glass stir rod to scratch to induce crystallization. If crystals do not begin to form, then add a small amount of pure aspirin to seed crystallization in your compound and then scratch again with your glass stir rod. Continue scratching with your glass stir rod until a large amount of product is crushed out. Then you're going to add 30 ml of cold water and break up any lumps with your stirring rod. Cool the mixture in an ice water bath until crystallization is complete. Set up your vacuum filtration system during your wait. Then set your filter paper using water and then filter your product and wash with ice cold water. Do not use a ton of water. Weigh the filtered solid to obtain the crude product yield. Now you're going to set aside a small amount of your crude product into one of your small test tubes for TLC analysis. Be sure to label the test tube as crude. Now transfer the rest of your crude product into a clean Erlenmeyer flask for recrystallization. Warm 95% ethanol in a hot water bath and then begin to add slowly to your crude product until dissolved. Keep track of the volume of ethanol that you're adding. Once dissolved, add twice the amount of water to the flask. Swirl to combine. Warm the now cloudy solution until clear. Then place in an ice water bath to recrystallize. Use your glass stir rod to induce recrystallization. Feel free to add ice to help in recrystallizing your aspirin product out of solution. You should have a large amount of product crash out from the ethanol recrystallization. While waiting for it to crystallize, set up your vacuum filtration system. Dampen the filter paper using cold water, and then filter your crystallized product. Use your spatula to scrape over as much product as possible, and then rinse with cold water. Continue to pull vacuum to air dry your product, then weigh your aspirin to obtain the purified yield. Place a small amount of our purified aspirin into a small test tube. We are now going to prepare our samples for TLC. So you're going to add DCM to dissolve this purified aspirin sample, and you're also going to dissolve the crude sample that you set aside earlier. Now you're going to prepare a TLC plate. Mark a baseline a few millimeters up from the bottom of the plate, and then label for 3 spots, one for your crude, one for your crystallized, and one for your standard aspirin samples. Now use a capillary tube to spot as small as possible onto the TLC plate. Using a fresh capillary, you're going to spot your next sample and repeat until all 3 are on the TLC plate. Put the TLC plate under the light to check that you have enough sample loaded onto the TLC plate. Then add your eluent to the 100 ml beaker. You are using 200 to 1 ethyl acetate to acetic acid. The solvent in the beaker should be below the baseline of the TLC plate. Place the TLC plate in the beaker, making sure the sides are not touching the edge of the beaker. Put the watch glass on top and let the solvent run up the plate until it's 3/4 of the way up. Then remove the plate from the chamber. Mark the solvent line immediately using a pencil. Once the plate is dry, place it under your UV light and circle any spots that appear. You will also run a second plate of standards against your aspirin. Draw both TLC plate results in your notebook.